Hello there, I'm Tim, and this level is called Conduit. This is just going to be a short walkthrough, showcase the level and explain some of the key design choices. So the level begins with the player regaining consciousness in a train car that has kind of toppled over a bridge and is hanging precariously in midair. As players look around, they can peer over the edge and see a sheer drop with some of the remaining chairs off to the sides. I wanted the player to kind of feel uneasy here and almost helpless, but also suggest that there was a precarious route to the ground using the remaining chairs. So players can kind of use these chairs as kind of like stepping stones down. And once a player reaches the ground and falls through, they can become aware of the goal ahead, the distant radio tower. There's a hungry raptor there feasting on someone who fell from the train, and also see possible routes and use this train car as cover while they decide what to do. Over to the right is a train car which is overturned and makes good cover, allowing the player to carefully sneak past the raptor. Or they could take a possible route behind them and explore. For now though, I'll focus on the main path and take the route ahead through the train. So I kind of wanted to use the train as cover because I thought these windows, keeping them empty of the glass, would make kind of a cool but almost really unsettling experience for the player. They feel vulnerable, they're kind of safe but also vulnerable with the windows being open, and I thought that would kind of make the pacing a little bit nicer here to kind of ramp up a little bit of the tension. And as they go, I mean, maybe we could have sounds of the raptor sort of tucking into the body, or being kind of gory as he feasted down on that on the body. It could also be another dinosaur maybe there, that might work better. So I'll carry on. As the player kind of gets towards the end of the train, you can kind of see the door in the distance, which is framed by the train's frame, the door frame, which is kind of indicating and guiding the player to their next kind of objective. I kind of use the tree branches here and the log in the distance with some colour over there to kind of further frame and lead the player and guide them to this doorway. So as the player crosses this little bridge over to this platform, I really wanted to create sort of a sort of sense of unease at this moment, and a feeling of being watched. Just above and to the right is kind of a security camera, which acts as kind of like an environmental cue. I also sort of set up a trigger and blueprint combo here to swap the material on the door to make it feel like the door was locked just as the player approached it. Although subtle, I feel this was a really nice way of kind of sort of making the player question the environment they're in and kind of what's happening. So from here, the player can take a look around to decide on what they do next. They can see this big kind of retaining wall, which sort of shows they're in this sort of big kind of complex. Behind them is the train crash, what they kind of survived. They can see the bridge has collapsed. There's something happened, something crashed into it, or something was deliberately destroyed maybe. The way forward is this way, which is indicated by this fallen tree which has broken through this retaining wall. The players can also kind of see through the grate here to sort of show there's another section, another place to explore. Just before they drop down into this area, they can kind of see their goal ahead again, the radio tower ahead, and also they'll get this view of a Japanese fighter plane from World War II. I wanted to create something that might tie into the mystery here and the island in general, or wherever this environment may be. I kind of assume it might be on an island. But anyway, something had brought this plane across time and space to this location and crashed into the trees. I felt this was an interesting way to use environmental storytelling to hint at the research facility's past, what the events happened, and sort of foreshadow what's to come. So as the player jumps down, this area is a little bit more open. You can kind of explore a little bit where the door was. There's some quite dense jungle out here. Jungle, I say, forest. But again, I've kind of tried to use the vegetation here to sort of create a sort of an open space in the middle, and use these kind of trees and branches to kind of guide the player through. They can also see these sort of fallen logs ahead, which tempt the player to come closer. I sort of used a little sort of whispery kind of audio cue here to sort of make the player sort of look around here, and this is kind of like the pilot who may have crashed. Just a little subtle thing, but a nice little thing for players to explore if they see it. Again, these fallen trees, I kind of wanted to sort of frame and funnel the players through here to a reveal of the research station. This is Orchid Station. A mysterious abandoned facility buried in the side of a mountain. I was really inspired by some sort of brutalist architecture for the outside of the facility, which is generally kind of emphasises that large and imposing geometry with kind of a really strong sense of scale and presence. And I felt this would kind of add to the unsettling feeling that the player might be going through, and sort of build a bit of tension here. And a nice sort of change up in the pacing of the level as well. So you've come through this sort of forest area into this sort of now sort of architecturally dense area. And the player might sort of ask themselves what was going on here. What was what is this place and what was it doing here? Yeah, that's kind of what I was feeling with this. I've also like a security camera up on the wall there to kind of re-emphasize that feeling of being watched. So the doorway is kind of locked, which is sort of shown with these sort of red lighting. There's kind of no way that the wheel is locked. I also wanted to sort of, I loved in the trailer that there was kind of a sort of a temporal sort of research going on. So this kind of hints at like what was happening in here, and also sort of ties in the plane and what you're going to find in the station, the facility. So players can kind of explore this area. They're sort of encouraged to do so once this is locked. I kind of use this blue cable as kind of a breadcrumb and a guide to sort of show the player that there is an electrical box at this side. If they flip that, the feedback, the messaging is green, and the green lighting is also shown here to indicate that now the door is open to lock. I thought it'd be cool to kind of leave this half open so players had to sort of crouch under it a little bit, so it's kind of not fully working, but it's kind of enough. And from here players can explore the facility. This valve door can now be opened, and it pops open. Players enter to a kind of reception area. I can imagine this being sort of filled with a little bit more sort of paperwork, maybe some monitors, depending on what era this is set and kind of what's going on. You could fill that out with some kind of new, cool mise-en-scene stuff. I kind of use a jump scare here to lock the player in and really sort of ramp up that tension, and the pacing becomes different here now as the player is kind of gone from that open outside area into a sort of more claustrophobic enclosed area now. Pipes are kind of just sort of, again, leading the player through here into these sort of coolant chambers. Everything is kind of piped around and there is cooling. There's some messaging of where to go, the research labs and special projects. So there's obviously been some kind of attempt to kind of get out or get in by someone, which is shown by these sort of broken doors. I felt it was nice to kind of go down into the facility, like it's getting deeper and you're going into something you don't really want to do. Again, a reminder of these coolant tanks everywhere, which is kind of foreshadowing what's to come as the players open these two doors. So upon entering the antechamber here, players encounter what appears to be like a frozen environment. The whole place is cold, and a frozen corpse here has kind of scrawled something in the ice saying "we were wrong." As the players kind of look around, they realise again there's a door ahead, which is kind of showing the lock before the key puzzle here. Players will see this button is red and they can't use it, and also that there's a containment protocol in effect and some kind of reader underneath. Monitors are empty, icicles, ice everywhere, and trying to keep this kind of cold. So players again sort of encouraged to piece together more of what happened here and find a way through that door to get an answer. Down here are some research labs. I looked in the trailer again, there's some sort of cool sort of physics, quantum mechanics, time travel sort of. So I kind of try to again use the boards to sort of illustrate this environmental storytelling. These were research suites, and there were active scientists working here on something to do with time, and whatever happened here, the fracture, they were studying time fractures. Again, there's some cool sort of environmental storytelling, sort of the mugs, people drinking coffee, talking time, talking research. I tried to keep it quite sort of creepy down here, almost like alive, like people were actually inhabiting and working here. And then anyway, the final, sorry I'm kind of rambling there, but anyway, the final room is kind of shows another frozen corpse in the final sort of office, but there is a key card which is required to kind of lift the containment protocols. Players head back up to the card reader. The card is red, the containment is lifted, and the lights again are green. Players get access, and they've found that these scientists have been trapped in whatever has kind of happened in this place. They're frozen solid, trying to escape before the containment doors fell down. This person I thought was kind of interesting because they're kind of twitching there, but it would kind of feel like they kind of gave up. They realised they weren't going to, and they kind of were reaching for the door, but it was too late. The two ahead of him or her could have been nearly there, but they just weren't quick enough before they froze. Again, some corpses everywhere, and this was kind of aimed at being some kind of experimental device that they were sort of using. The crane dropped it into the water to cool it off before whatever happened could happen, and the whole room was frozen instantly. Again, some coolant pipes to kind of indicate. I think with more time it'd have been cool to have some sort of monitors in here and maybe some journals to read about what had happened, or some kind of tapes that players could listen to about what had actually happened and get more detail. But I think this was kind of a cool, unsettling reveal. These kind of guys here, I thought this was a really cool way of kind of sort of showing this mysterious device and what the sort of scientists were doing down here. But anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble for a lot of that. I hope my design decisions were explained clearly. I've added an additional document which should help with that. Thanks again.